Most people wake up already tired. Not from lack of sleep, from the first 20 minutes of their day. I used to reach for coffee before my feet even hit the floor, scroll through messages half asleep, and I still felt drained by 10 a.m. every single day, no matter how much sleep I'd actually gotten the night before. Then I changed 5 specific things about my first 20 minutes awake. Nothing extreme, no supplements, no cold plunges, no expensive gadgets. My energy didn't just improve, it roughly doubled by week 2, based on how I actually felt getting through my afternoons without hitting a wall. Here's exactly what changed, why most morning routine advice online is missing the actual mechanism behind it, and how you can build the same sequence starting tomorrow. Morning routine content is everywhere right now, and most of it looks identical. Cold showers, ice baths, 10-step skincare, meditation apps, green juice before sunrise. Every creator has their own dramatic ritual they swear changed their life. Most of it treats energy like something you can hack with one intense action, instead of something built from a sequence your body actually responds to biologically, hour by hour. If you've tried a morning routine before and gave up within a week, you're not lacking discipline. You were probably copying someone else's routine without understanding why any single part of it worked for them in the first place, which makes it nearly impossible to stick with once life gets busy and the novelty wears off. Here's the counterintuitive part. Research on circadian rhythm regulation shows that light exposure in the first 30 minutes after waking has a stronger effect on daytime energy and alertness than caffeine intake timing does. That single fact reshaped how I think about mornings entirely, and it's the foundation everything else in this video builds on. So today, no generic checklist copied from somewhere else, just the 5 specific things I changed, why each one works biologically, and how you can build the same sequence starting tomorrow morning without adding a single extra minute to your day. Point 1. Morning light exposure resets your entire energy clock. Getting outside within 30 minutes of waking is the single highest leverage change you can make to your energy. Full stop, above everything else on this list. Research on circadian biology shows that natural light exposure shortly after waking helps regulate cortisol's natural morning rise and anchors the timing of melatonin release later that night, which directly affects how alert you feel the following day and how easily you fall asleep that same evening. I used to open my laptop in bed before even opening the blinds, checking emails in near darkness with my curtains still closed. My cortisol had no clear signal to rise properly on its own schedule, so my body stayed in a groggy in-between state for hours, neither fully asleep nor properly awake. The moment I started stepping outside for even 5 minutes before checking my phone, that fog lifted noticeably faster than it ever had with an extra cup of coffee. Have you ever noticed you feel more awake standing outside on a bright morning than sitting inside under indoor lighting for the same amount of time? That's not in your head. That's your circadian system responding to actual light intensity, which indoor lighting, even bright indoor lighting, rarely comes close to matching in terms of the biological signal it sends to your brain. It doesn't need to be complicated either. I'm not talking about staring directly at the sun or standing outside for an hour in the cold. Even a few minutes on a balcony, a porch, or just standing by an open window with the curtains pulled back seems to make a measurable difference. On cloudy days, outdoor light is still dramatically brighter than almost any indoor lighting setup, so the effect holds up even without direct sunlight. But light alone wasn't enough on its own. The second change is the one that actually stopped my energy from crashing hard by mid-morning. Something light exposure alone hadn't fully fixed for me. Point 2. Delaying caffeine by 90 minutes changed my entire afternoon dormital. Drinking coffee the moment you wake up is quietly working against your own energy system, even though it feels like the obvious first move to make. Adenosine, the chemical responsible for feelings of sleepiness, is naturally cleared, partly through your body's own morning processes, as cortisol rises after waking. Caffeine works by blocking adenosine receptors, but drinking it too early, while cortisol is already naturally elevated from waking, can blunt your body's own natural alertness curve and lead to a harder crash once the caffeine wears off later in the morning. I used to drink coffee within 5 minutes of waking up, sometimes before I'd even gotten fully dressed for the day. I felt a spike, then a crash by 10 a.m. every single day, without fail, like clockwork. Once I pushed my first cup back by 90 minutes and let my natural cortisol do its job first, that mid-morning crash mostly disappeared, and I stopped needing a second or third cup just to get through my emails. Think about the difference between two versions of the same person. One drinks coffee immediately and crashes hard by mid-morning, reaching for more caffeine just to function through the rest of the day. The other waits, lets their body wake up naturally first, then uses caffeine as a genuine boost layered on top of an already rising alertness curve, instead of using it as a substitute for that curve entirely. This was honestly the hardest habit for me to change, because reaching for coffee first thing felt automatic, almost ritualistic. What helped was simply having water ready first, so my hands had something to do before the coffee maker even turned on. Once I fixed the timing of light and caffeine together, the next piece was about movement. And honestly, this one surprised me the most out of everything I changed that month. Point 3. Even light movement outperforms sitting still with coffee. A short walk or a few minutes of movement in your first 20 minutes does more for your energy than sitting quietly with a cup of coffee ever will. Physical activity increases blood flow and oxygen delivery throughout the body, and even brief movement has been shown to improve alertness and mood in the short term, independent of caffeine intake or how much sleep someone got the night before. I started doing a slow 10-minute walk before sitting down at my desk. Nothing intense, just movement around the block or even around my apartment if the weather was bad outside. My brain felt noticeably clearer within the first few days of doing this, and I stopped reaching for a second coffee out of pure habit by 9 a.m., something I used to do almost automatically without even thinking about it. It didn't need to look like exercise either. Some mornings, it was a real walk outside. Other mornings, when I was short on time, it was just stretching for a few minutes, or walking laps around my living room while listening to something. The point wasn't intensity. It was simply getting my body moving before asking my brain to sit still and focus for hours. So light, caffeine timing, and movement covered the physical side of the equation. But the piece that actually surprised me most out of all 5 wasn't physical at all. It was entirely about attention and where I chose to point it first. Point 4. What you look at first matters more than people think. Checking your phone within the first few minutes of waking sets a stress-reactive tone for your entire morning, before you've even had a chance to feel properly awake. Research on stress and attention shows that immediately engaging with high-stimulation input, like notifications, email, or social media, activates a reactive, alert state driven partly by cortisol and adrenaline, rather than a calm, self-directed one that your brain would otherwise build gradually on its own terms. I used to check messages the second I woke up, and I'd already feel behind before I even got out of bed, scrolling through a dozen notifications, while still half asleep and barely able to focus on the screen. Delaying that by even 20 or 30 minutes changed the entire emotional tone of my mornings, not just my energy levels, and it carried forward into how I handled stress for the rest of the day, even during meetings later that afternoon. Have you ever noticed your heart rate change the moment you open your inbox first thing in the morning, before you've even had a sip of water or stepped outside? That reaction is real, and it's setting the stage for how your whole day feels before you've done a single productive thing yet. I didn't delete my apps or do anything drastic. I just physically left my phone charging in another room overnight, so picking it up wasn't the automatic first motion of my day anymore. That one small physical change did more than any willpower-based rule ever could. The last piece is the simplest one on this entire list, and it's the one most people skip completely because it doesn't feel productive or impressive enough to matter on its own. Point 5. Hydration before anything else fixes a problem most people don't notice. You wake up mildly dehydrated every single day, whether you realize it or not, and that alone can feel almost identical to low energy or fatigue. After 6 to 8 hours without water, your body is naturally in a mildly dehydrated state upon waking, and even mild dehydration has been linked to reduced concentration and increased perceived fatigue in research on hydration and cognitive performance. I started drinking a full glass of water before my first coffee, keeping it right next to my bed so there was zero friction involved and no excuse to skip it. It sounds too simple to actually matter. But combined with the other 4 changes, that small shift removed a layer of grogginess I didn't even realize was sitting there in the background the whole time, quietly making everything else feel harder than it needed to be. What I noticed most wasn't a dramatic burst of energy from the water itself. It was more that the fog I used to feel, for the first hour of the day, simply arrived lighter, and lifted faster once it did show up at all. Before I give you the exact order to stack these 5 things in, the one mistake that quietly cancels out all 5 of these changes is coming up next, and it's far more common than you'd think. Here's exactly what to do this week. Step 1. Get outside within 30 minutes of waking, even for just 5 minutes. Skip your phone entirely during this window. No exceptions, even if it's just to check the time. Step 2. Push your first coffee back by 60 to 90 minutes after waking. Drink a full glass of water first thing instead, ideally kept within reach before you even get out of bed, so there's no extra step involved. Step 3. Add 10 minutes of light movement, walking, stretching, anything at all, before you sit down at a desk or in front of a screen for the day. It doesn't need to feel like a workout to count. Step 4. Delay checking messages, email, or social media until after your first 20 to 30 minutes are done and you've completed the steps above. Consider charging your phone outside the bedroom if checking it first thing has become automatic. Step 5. Stack these in the same order every single day for 1 full week. Consistency in the sequence matters more than doing any single step perfectly on any given day, so don't let one missed morning derail the rest of the week. None of these steps require money, supplements, or waking up earlier than you already do. They just require a different first 20 minutes, structured in an order your biology actually responds to instead of fighting against. My energy didn't double because of one dramatic change or a single magic habit hiding somewhere online. It doubled because 5 small things, stacked in the right order, stopped working against my own biology every single morning. If this made sense to you, the next video is going to completely change how you think about your afternoon energy crash and what's actually causing it.